Alright, so for your cream puff, folks, you're going to replicate this presentation. For your inspiration shoe base, you are free to experiment, free to try out anything that you wish, right? You can use these components that I'm showing you, but you can play around with them as you desire. Right? Perfect. So, first thing obviously you're going to need is your cream puff. Right? You're going to need some whipping cream. Right, so this is just your 36% whipping cream. I just whipped it up by hand. If you choose to use the mixing bowl to whip it, you can do that, but it works really well with hand. Anytime you're whipping cream, just make sure it is cold. If your cream has been sitting out for too long, it's not going to whip. Right. Also, when you whip your cream, if you whip it and you let it sit for about 15-20 minutes, it tends to deflate. Right. So when you bring it back out again, you need to make sure that you whip it again. Right. Good whipping cream, it's going to hold. It's not going to fall off from the bowl. Right? It's going to form little peaks. If you look at your whipping cream and you can see little spots in it, that means it's just been over whipped, right? So the butter and the whey is separating. Please throw it out. There's nothing you can do with it. If you use it as in your desserts, it's going to taste buttery, right? So it's not ideal. Perfect. We've got some berries up here too, and I'm going to show you how to do some mango caviar. Right. Perfect. So this one here, if you look upon D2L under that garnishes Word document, you're going to find a recipe called fruit caviar, right? And that's what we're doing. So these are fruit bowls, which we're going to make. This is to kind of give you an idea. If you ever had bubble tea, right? You get those little like tapioca bowls in there. This is very similar, right? It's extremely similar to that, but it just tastes better because it's got a flavor to it. So that one here is mango puree and water mixed together. If you look at the recipe, it says about 100 grams of puree and 50 grams of water. Right. Then take that into the pot. And so this one here is agar. Agar is the thickening agent that we're going to be using, right? And I'll mix that along with some granulated sugar. What granulated sugar does is essentially just kind of splits up the agar particles, so that they don't cling to each other as soon as they come in contact with the liquid. And so that way you'll have less lumps forming if you were to mix the sugar along with it. I'm going to show you what the agar looks like, so I'm just going to pull it out. So this is what it looks like. It's going to be in a brown container, just powder, and it says agar at the very bottom over there. Right, it's going to be on the community table for you to grab. So, going to get the heat going. Once that mix is simmering, I'm going to add the agar into it. Right. What I'm going to need is a squeeze bottle along with it. So, I'm going to keep that here in hand. Now, one of the beauties about agar is, if you want to use it, right, it is great. However, unlike gelatin, agar needs to be cooked. So if you just boil this liquid and if you just pour the agar in, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to thicken. So when you add that agar in, you need to constantly keep mixing it and cooking it for at least a couple of minutes. Alright, so it was similar to your pastry cream, right? You know how you were cooking it? That's the same technique that you're going to be doing for this fruit caviar. Awesome. Perfect. Someone needs to look at that. You can go. Awesome. With that, one more element that I need to bring out, so we'll go through that in a moment. This one here is cold oil. So I place this in the freezer for about an hour, so it's really nice and cold. Alright, so you want to make sure that stays like this. So now this one's boiling. It's going to add the agar and the sugar mixed into that. I'm just going to continue to cook that down. working with just half the recipe. I'm going to be done fairly quick. Right, but you're looking at about a minute of mixing time. Once you've mixed it for a minute, grab your squeeze bottle. Careful, this is going to be super hot, right? So if you need to use a towel to hold it, you can do that. So, once that is done, you're just going to put drops into the oil. Sorry? No, this is oil. This is oil that was frozen, yes, not egg whites, no. But I know they look a lot like egg whites. Awesome. We're going to leave those in there. We're going to work on the rest of the plate. So, load up a piping bag. Suggest use a star tip in the end. Whipping cream. So I did sweeten this whipping cream. So for about a liter of whipping cream, you need 200 grams of sugar to sweeten it, right? So yes, you don't need to whip 200 grams of. You don't need to whip a liter of whipping cream just for garnishing. And I would say about 150 to 200 grams of whipping cream is plenty. So first thing that I'm going to do is just place some down there so that my cream puff doesn't dance around anymore. Right. I'm then going to do some spots on each side. Right, I like to play along with odd numbers. So because odd numbers are more appealing. So I'm going to do 3 on that side, 3 on this side. Alright, so I'm just going to start off from here. Do 1, 2, 3. Same thing on this side. 1, 2, 3. Right. So when I bite those, you want to kind of break them up a little bit. They don't need to be the same size, right? So you can always go something's bigger, something's a little bit smaller. It looks so much more nicer. Perfect. Then I've got some of these strawberries that I just sliced. I'm just going to fan them out. Got some of the glaze I'm going to use. One on this side. Some berries. Now, when you're using berries, I strongly suggest don't cut them, because once you cut berries, they begin to bleed right away. Right. And then when that happens, you just have a lot of the juices flowing around on the plate, making it really messy for you to look at. I'm just missing the strainer, so I'm just going to go grab some of that strainer. So give me a moment. Now, because I was working with a really small amount of puree, right? So my balls haven't come out really round, but because but once you work with a larger quantity of mango puree, you definitely see better results, right? Because this was just a very small recipe that I was working with. I'm going to take some of those balls and whisk them out. Yeah, so again. And stick a little bit with the rule of the odds. So that yellow really gives it a nice bright color. And it just makes it nice and shiny. Perfect. What else do now? Some of you, I see some of you are big fans of mint leaf. Right? Mint leaf is good, right? But it just takes you back to the 70s, right? Because then everything was mint leaf, mint leaf. Fennel ferns are a great garnish. It's more in line with a lot of new techniques. So I've got some fennel ferns in the fridge that you could use in order to add a little bit of green, a splash of green if you will. Awesome. So it's good until now. The only one element I feel missing is getting a little height. Right. So for that, what we're going to do is make some chocolate leaves. So to do that, first up, we're just going to cut out our parchment paper. Just going to cut it into half. Half again. And one more half. So nice little strips is what we're looking for. I'm gonna grab some chocolate. You've probably seen this block of chocolate from year one. Right, brings back memories. This is called coating chocolate. Right, so when we speak about chocolate in theory, you'll understand it a lot better. And I have a day when I'm going to show you how to actually temper chocolate too. So you're going to get more information on that day. Today I'm just going to give you a little overview. Right, so this you can call it fake chocolate because this is essentially chocolate where the cocoa butter has been taken out and replaced with vegetable oil. Right, so it's cheaper. Right. Also, it takes tempering away, so you don't need to temper coating chocolate. All you need to do is melt it down till it's 32 degrees. Right? And then you can use it. So it saves you a lot of time. Especially if you have to dip cookies, you have to dip biscotti, you have to dip truffles, something that you need to do a lot of, you need to do thousands, right? Imagine tempering chocolate, it's going to take too much time. Right? So that's why this is. So, in order to use this, what I'm going to do is actually when we get to doing the garnishes, I'm going to cut out a whole bunch and I'm going to start a double boiler and I'm going to melt it down on the stove. So each one of you don't need to individually melt your chocolate down. You'll have some. All you need to do is just come grab a deli container and take what you need. When you're done using, you come and you pour it. So that way it should make life a little easier for us. Alright. So, coating chocolate is being melted. This is being melted to about 32 degrees. You're going to grab one strip of parchment paper and you're going to need a paring knife. You're going to dip the front end with the paring knife, clean the back side. And then just going to hold the parchment paper with 2 fingers. Right. Press that down and then gradually just pull it behind. I'll show you again. So just press it down. Pull it behind. Press it down. So when I'm pressing it down, guys, I'm not going all the way. I'm not squishing it completely. Right, like that. Because if I do, when I pull, you're gonna notice there's no chocolate there, right? So I'm going down just enough for the chocolate to touch, and then I'm pulling it. And so it's a nice smear on the top. Nice smearing. Perfect. Now you can, as you notice, right, the first one's already begun to set. So coating chocolate does set fairly quick. Awesome. So as you're waiting for that to harden up, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about grading. So when you come out for grading, right, what I'm looking at is first primarily is your pre-puff, right? is it filled enough? So when you put that pastry cream filling inside, make sure you really squeeze it. Right? I had this thing in so in Lake Louise, you know, and I told you that story about it, right? We used to do cream puffs for the deli, and we used to sell them for about $6.50. So those are expensive cream puffs, right? And you know, anybody who's visiting Lake Louise and who's staying there, it's paying upwards of $300 a night, right, for a room there. So it's really pricey. So we had this guest who showed up at the deli. He got a cream puff. He bit into it. There was less filling in it. So basically, there was a hollow spot. Right? He just went on a rant. He just complained from the restaurant manager until the general manager, until we actually had to reimburse him his entire room stay. So you can be so yes, and you know, and yes, there were a lot of questions posed to me on why that happened, and it was like, oh, you got to check each and every one. And, you know, sometimes most of you who worked, you know, in front of the house, when someone corporate comes in and says, you got to check everything. Like, yes, for sure. If you want me to weigh each cream puff out before it goes, and we used to do about 100 cream puffs a day. So that was a fight for a different day, right? But anyway, so for that reason, when you, as soon as you hold those in your hand, you should be able to tell exactly how heavy they are, right? They should feel heavy. If they don't feel heavy, they probably need some more filling in there. The second thing I'm looking at is your whipping cream, right? How good is your whipping cream? If it's not stiff enough, it's gonna spread. It's not gonna hold its shape, right? If it's too good, if it's whipped too much, I'm gonna see some separation on there. Right? I'm also going to look at the bellies and at your caviar to make sure that the jelly is holding quite a bit. Right? Awesome. So these ones are looking good. So that's how fast they dry. Alright, that's how fast they dry. Right? So perfect. They look good right now, but we're going to make them better. So what I'm going to do is just heat my knife ever so lightly, and just make some dents in it. And then on the other side. So I do about 4 on each side, and that gives you a nice delicate structure. Perfect. In order to glue that in now, take a little bit of chocolate. I'm going to place the chocolate because it's going to be at an angle. Take that. So that should glue it on the top, right? So perfect, yeah. Now a couple of variations that you could do with these. You know, sometimes what I do is, you know, when you use up all the saran wrap, you get that hollow tube, the cardboard tube, right? What I like to do is, before this hardens up, I just slide this inside that tube, so that it gets a little bit of a shape, right? It gets a nice curved shape, and that could be something you can experiment with this stuff. Other variations could be using different colors, so you can add a color into it, right? And that gives it much more of an effect. Perfect, right? All right. One other component I'm missing on there is, so this is some strawberry puree. I added just a drop of red food color into it. Because as you notice, you know, when you use that strawberry puree, it doesn't really have a nice bright red color, right? So just maybe adding some of that color into it might be a good option. And as I was speaking about earlier, when you're using red puree, just be really cautious about it, because you know. When it comes to food colors, red often indicates danger, right? You often associate red with danger. So if you overdo the red, it's just going to have a very negative impact. So just keep it minimal, right? Keep it as less as possible. Awesome. So that's the plate we are looking for. Any questions for us? That's good. Alrighty. So what time is it? Almost 3 o'clock, right? Perfect. So what we're going to be doing is today, you don't need to get this graded today. Right? So I would suggest first we're going to try and finish off our custard. So I'm grading, right? So as and when you're done with your plate presentations, you can come up, you can grade. I do give a lot of feedback, so it might take a little while. Right? So if you can't get graded today, we'll get graded tomorrow. So that's not a problem, right? And then ideally for the group that's in tomorrow is when we're going to focus on plating these. And for the group that's not in tomorrow, on Monday, you can focus on your pre-puffs, right? So you still have that. Questions? Everyone's good? Alrighty.